That change going to look like, Don? What practically your father as president, I think you would even say, was a divisive figure. What's it going to look like in the second term?
I don't think he was a divisive figure at all. I think the media created divisiveness around him. They lied about Russia collusion. They said he was a traitor. They went after him in every which way as possible. If the media actually starts being an honest broker, talking about the things that he did, the prosperity he brought, the peace deals that he signed around the world, rather than the disaster that we're living right now, I think you'd do everyone in the country a big favor.
I know immigration's important to him. I covered the family separation crisis closely. Will we continue to see policies like separating 5,000 children deliberately from their parents?
You mean the Obama administration?
You know they didn't do that, sir.
Okay, sure.
Will there be a second family separation policy?
It's MSDNC, so I expect nothing less from you clowns. Even today, even 48 hours later, you couldn't wait. You couldn't wait with your lies and with your nonsense. So just get out of here.
It's a wrap. I need a drink.
Back out. So we finished
It's a
the
wrap.
first episode.
It's a wrap. It's a wrap. I need a drink. I need a drink. It's a wrap. It's a wrap. And we gonna eat. We gonna drink. We gonna party. We gonna eat. We gonna drink. And we gonna be back tomorrow.
Meanwhile, in the back, they're like working.
Thanks for joining me here at Courageous Media. The clown networks are hard at work, beclowning themselves and plummeting, killing their ratings. This is absolutely hilarious. All right, you've got to see this. I've got news on both Jake Tapper and his, as everybody has said, his best-selling book tour. Well, it's not so great selling after all, and his ratings are plummeting at the same time that MSNBC is in complete free fall. I wanted to show that clip because Donald Trump Jr. had it absolutely correct. They're MSDNC, they're absolute liars. It is amazing to see what's happening. I've got some phenomenal clips. Some of them you've probably seen. I know some of them you've seen because you've seen them on this channel. Some of them you may not have seen, but we're going to dive into this story basically about the propaganda media is absolutely losing it because their ratings are in complete free fall. Struggling MSNBC switched their entire lineup and they still cannot drive a rating. They are doing absolutely horribly. So with that said, I want to dive into a quick montage of some of the best, I put that in quotes, best of MSDNC, the utter complete liar network. And then we're going to look at some of the information on the Clown News Network. But as we go, thanks so much for rolling up. Really appreciate you rolling in here and stepping up. So let's check out this quick montage. Here we go.
Never seen anything quite like what happened at the White House today.
Today, Donald Trump irreparably destroyed the 80-year-old post-World War II international order.
An Oval Office ambush of an American ally that will reverberate all around the world and stain America's image for years to come.
That was, to say the least, the most contentious confrontation between world leaders perhaps we have ever seen, certainly on television.
It was a truly historic moment, not in the good way. One that I fear realigned the world order, upending the only foreign policy consensus that most living Americans and Europeans have ever known.
I've never seen anything like that in my entire life. What I saw is a complete transformation of what the United States is in the world.
Certainly was a day of shame for the United States. That clip, the footage of the Oval Office meeting, is going to be shown for years to come by politicians, government officials.
Hey, well, I do agree with Clapper on one thing, and that is, yes, that clip will be shown over and over again because it absolutely does demonstrate that the United States is changing its position. We are no longer everybody's lapdog. We are no longer just the silent police force giving our blood, sweat, treasure, and lives to everybody else in the world. But that notwithstanding, that's not what this video is about. I wanted you to see the complete one-sided fabrication of lies that MSNBC has perpetrated on the American public over and over and over again, so that we can get into this story about the complete dismemberment of their ratings. It is an absolute amazing thing to see just how low they are sinking. And this, it's going to get to the fact, it's going to get to the point where Comcast may not even be able to sell this dog network. Their ratings are so bad. They've dropped 41% in the primetime demographic. The one demographic that everybody wants, which is like 24 to to 44-year-olds. I forget the exact demographic. But anyway, the prime spending demographic. That's where all the money's spent. That's what everybody wants. And they are absolutely failing. So with that, why are they failing? Well, because they thought, because if you all remember, we did a story on this back in November. After the election, MSNBC, CNN, all of their ratings tanked. They tanked during the election and after the election. But what these networks thought, instead of doing some introspection, instead of thinking, hey, why are we losing viewership? They just figured that they could go back to the 2016 playbook, 2017 playbook, which was Trump derangement will carry us. People will watch us because we are 100% 24/7 anti-Trump. We will lie, cheat, steal, anything to be anti-Trump. And they figured that they could run that same playbook, but this is a different time. In the in the words of Draft Day, which is kind of a quasi decent movie, but anyway, we live in a different world than we did a few seconds ago. In this case, 5+ years ago and 8+ years ago. So Trump derangement is not going to carry the day. Back then, the propaganda media had the clout, they had the viewership. If they colluded and ran a story all together, they could gin up viewership and they could gin up belief in that story. Well, it's not that way anymore. Over the last 8 years, they have completely destroyed their credibility. And that credibility destruction is now ongoing, and it's getting even deeper with the Jake Tapper revelation that, lo and behold, Biden was cognitively impaired and physically impaired from day one of his presidency. And nobody trusts these clowns anymore. They are now seeing in real time that they have been lied to over and over and over again. People are starting to put together the snippets of, wait a minute, that seemed like a lie, and that seemed like a lie. And it is now the foundation has been completely laid, or you could call it the roof on this house, by Tapper basically admitting that the entire media was part of the cover-up. He hasn't actually admitted that specifically, but by releasing this book and by saying what he's saying and going on this ridiculous book tour trying to redeem his own credibility, he has tacitly said everybody was involved in the cover-up. And that's what people are figuring out. They know that everybody was involved in the cover-up, and now no one is buying their credibility. So we have some phenomenal clips to show you as we dive into this, because MSNBC is absolutely on the fritz. Thanks, everybody, for rolling up. Here we go.
Let's say we can tell the Elon story and this kind of disciplining by democracy as a story of someone leaving. But there is pain in the wake of these tariffs, and there's pain in the wake of what Elon did. He talked about bringing the wood chipper to USAID. Brooke Nichols, Boston University professor, mathematician, figured out what is the effect of this. They have a tracker. 300,000 deaths, according to a Boston University professor.
This is an MSNBC story. They have literally posted this moron while he spews completely unsubstantiated lies. They are now blaming Elon Musk for 300,000 deaths because we didn't fund transgender surgeries in Mali, the Arab Muslim Sesame Street show in Syria, pride parades in Botswana. You just go back to the list of complete fabricated nonsense that was essentially money laundering through USAID. MSNBC is now peddling stories that Elon Musk is to blame for 300,000 deaths. This is absolutely egregious lying. And this is why people don't listen to these fools anymore. Check this one out, because it goes farther down the rabbit hole. Or maybe we're staying on the same level. I'm not sure, but it's just as bad.
To get him back home. I'm curious, could you explain or maybe express how is this different? Because I've been thinking about this case in particular, but some of the others that are very similarly situated. How is this different from when Putin grabs a journalist or some, rogue group in the Middle East grabs an American and we're sitting here fighting to try to get them back? Our own government did this. Mm-hmm. Our own government snatched him up and put him in harm's way and now refuses to do.
This fool used to be a rhino Republican. But again, this is the type of story that MSDNC is running. They are now comparing to the deportation of criminal illegal aliens to foreign kidnapping. Hey, moron Michael Steele, when somebody gets kidnapped in a foreign country, in an Arabic country, and held in prison in that country without charges, without anything else, or in this case, not even by the government, they're usually kidnapped by a terror group and held for ransom. That is, the United States government is taking illegal aliens, criminal and otherwise, and they are deporting them back to their home country. So if you want to use the same analogy, that means a terrorist group in Syria would kidnap an American citizen and immediately send them back to America. The public sees through this nonsense. They shipped an El Salvadoran citizen back to El Salvador, where El Salvador promptly incarcerated him for being a criminal. This is the nonsense that MSDNC spews.
Do what it must do and should do to get him back home. Is there any difference in your view as a member of Congress when, you're sitting here and you're getting intel and information on individuals around the globe who've been taken by, taken hostage by groups and organizations and all this energy to try to get them back? I find we're doing the exact same thing here in the U.S.
The only time we did anything remotely close to the same thing of what he's talking about, kidnapping people and incarcerating them without any due process. Oh, that would have been J6. Yeah, that's right. No, what ICE is doing is deporting people. They're not kidnapping them. We're not even incarcerating them. We're detaining them pending deportation. We are sending them home. Nobody trusts this nonsense anymore. Now, to get to the real reason why their ratings have even plummeted again, and that is their now failed coverage of the Biden cognitive decline, the Biden complete physical fall off a cliff, his entire presidency. And they have now realized that everybody was in on the fix, that they were in on the cover up. Tapper has blown the lid off this thing. And in trying to grift for money, he's basically shown himself, he has exposed the cover up that he himself was a part of. But let's go back to Scarborough talking about this very fact and then dive into, we've got clips of Psaki, Jen Psaki, who took over Rachel Maddow's. Actually, Rachel Maddow was doing one show a week and getting paid like $30 million. And so MSNBC went and cut her pay and she went down to $25 million. But Maddow was on air 5 days a week for the first 100 days of the Trump presidency. Then they took her off and they put on Alex Wagner, I believe, and her ratings absolutely tanked. So they got rid of her from the primetime slot. And then they put in Psaki and her ratings have tanked even worse. This is absolutely amazing. So let's first check in with Scarborough, because this is how you know the fix was in. This is not we missed the story. No, they were all part of the cover-up. Please, if you're watching, please let us know that you're here in the comments. Like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share Courageous Media. All right, here we go.
But comparing that guy's mental state, I've said it for years now, he's cogent. Mm-hmm. But I undersold him when I said he was cogent. He's far beyond cogent. In fact, I think he's better than he's ever been, intellectually, analytically, because he's been around for 50 years. And, I don't know if people know this or not, Biden used to be a hothead. Sometimes that Irishman.
He's better than he's ever been. F you if you can't handle the truth. He is more cogent, more credible, more intelligent. I mean, this is how you know it wasn't a missed story. They were actively peddling propaganda. 100% actively peddling the propaganda. Now, we've got Jen Psaki talking about this very fact and how, she pretended she didn't know what was going on. So here we go with this.
I left in May of 2022, just for the facts here. And I have seen Biden once since then, when I took my daughter to the holiday party this last December after he had lost. And so I hadn't seen him in person during that period of time. I never saw that person, not a single time. And I was in the Oval Office every day that was on that debate stage. I'm not a doctor. Aging happens quite quickly. Were things that people saw during that period of time that were similar to that or would have been in a category of that? I don't know, possibly, right? And all these books are going to tell us.
Do you think that were they actively covering it up? Were they sort of in denial, or was that just a bad debate? Like, what is your read on that?
Well, this is what I mean about cover up is a very loaded term, I think.
Well, it means you knew that it was really bad and you're pretending otherwise versus you're deluding yourself, which I think is what people do a lot.
Well, I understand, but I still think it's like cover up is often like a crime, right?
Exactly. The Democrats, the White House, and the propaganda media. Now, you were part of both. You've been part of the White House and part of the propaganda media, Jen Psaki. You covered up a crime, foisting up a president who was incapable of running the country, incapable of fulfilling his duties under the Constitution is a crime. Forging his signature with an auto pen on legally binding things like executive orders and other things is a crime. This was all a crime scene, and you are a part of it, Jen Psaki. Now, I want to get into the actual ratings numbers, but I want to play two other clips because it's not just the Jake Tapper issue. It's also the tact that MSDNC and CNN took with respect to other lies. I'm going to play you Scarborough on the Hunter Biden laptop situation, and then I'm going to play you Jen Psaki as she shills for men in women's sports and men in women's locker rooms, which resoundingly Americans decry. So let's first jump into Scarborough on the Hunter Biden laptop, because this was, again, another series of lies, not mistakes, not oops, we missed it, absolute peddled lies on the behalf of the propaganda media.
And talk about Facebook having problems and Twitter having problems with a story that even the New York Post knew was a lie. They published a series of lies peddled them by Rudy Giuliani, who admitted that nobody else would take it but Rupert Murdoch's New York Post, because they might look into it and tell the truth. Here we are in 2020. This is what it's come down to, America. Giuliani is feeding Russian misinformation to Donald Trump and feeding Russian disinformation to the New York Post.
Now, what was going on was the Biden camp, the Biden campaign, because he wasn't president yet, and the propaganda media were feeding lies to the American people, actively covering up another crime, a series of crimes. Hunter Biden, in all of his criminal escapades that were detailed on his laptop, both sexual and otherwise, as well as the Biden crime family's involvement in pay for play, influence peddling, bribery, and other things. Now, the other thing that people are so sick of is the propaganda media peddling the lie that of transgenderism and peddling the lie that men belong in women's sports. Well, this is the last clip before we dive into the actual article. Here we go.
There's obviously a lot of soul searching right now going on within the Democratic Party, and that's a good thing. But what I worry about is
there's been no soul searching whatsoever. Let's be honest.
That in the course of all that soul searching, some Democrats might reach the wrong sweeping conclusions. And there are a lot of issues that fall into that bucket. But one in particular that stuck out to me is transgender rights. Republicans spent hundreds of millions of dollars on anti-trans ads this election cycle, including one that showed Vice President Harris talking about government funding for gender reaffirming care for prisoners and detainees. If that sounds like a particularly obscure issue, it is, because it applies to a tiny group of people. And it's also a policy that, by the way, was in place during the first Trump presidency. Another one of the lines that ran over and over again in those ads and throughout right-wing media is this idea that America is faced with a crisis of boys playing in girls' sports. Now, these ads created this perception that the issues of trans kids playing sports was dominating schools across the country, which is completely false. Some people got...
Again with the lies, with the complete fabricated 180-degree out lies. This issue absolutely dominated schools. It absolutely dominated the news. As women, girls were getting injured in sports. One girl, as we know, playing volleyball, got her face crushed by a male spiking the volleyball to the point that she had traumatic brain injury and is quasi-paralyzed now. You had girl basketball players getting mauled by guys on the court and ending up with back injuries. You saw what happened in the Olympics with the Italian boxer who literally had to withdraw from the fight because she has never been hit so hard. If she'd have stayed in there, she probably would have ended up with brain damage. So yes, this absolutely dominated, and it is a huge deal. And no, the policies that Jen Psaki was talking about were not in place to the level that they were in the Trump administration. Title IX was there, but Title IX was not actively foisting men masquerading as trans women onto women's sports. That was solely a result of Biden, by executive order, changing the Title IX rules.
Got pulled into that argument. I mean, immediately after the election, Congressman Seth Moulton told the New York Times that, quote, Democrats spend way too much time trying not to offend anyone rather than being brutally honest about the challenges many Americans face. I have 2 little girls. I don't want them getting run over on a playing field by a male or formerly male athlete. But as a Democrat, I'm supposed to be afraid to say that. And then last weekend, Congressman Moulton came on this network to discuss those comments.
I was just speaking authentically as a dad about one of many issues where I think we're just out of touch with the majority of voters. And I stand by my position. You know, maybe I didn't get all the words exactly right. But the point is that the backlash I've received proves my point that we can't even have these discussions as a party.
Look, reflection is good.
He's the only one speaking any common sense. Again, the propaganda media has thrown in with the Democrat Party and the globalist cabal, and they're standing with, in this case, the 5% versus the 95%. No one, when I say no one, in numbers, wants men in women's sports, boys in girls' sports, boys in girls' locker rooms. Nobody wants it except the extreme, hard left, anti-American, anti-human, progressive left. So that's why the clips that I've shown are why we're getting the results that we're about to dive into, which is MSNBC's ratings absolutely plummeting even after they tried changing their lineup. Thanks so much for rolling up. Please, everybody, like, comment, and subscribe. Smash that like button for me. Let's start driving our channel forward that we are trying to come out of demonetization. But really appreciate everybody being here. Also, share this with everybody that you know. So let's dive into the latest results. As you know, MSNBC shook up their lineup. They brought Maddow back for a little bit, and then they sent her back to 1 day a week again. They tried Alex Wagner. They've now tried Jen Psaki, and nothing has worked. So far, MSNBC has dropped 41% in the primetime demographic and 34% in their total day demo compared to this time last year. Their ratings are absolutely in free fall. So the latest readings, so Maddow, who's been the top host on the network for years, figured out that she figured that Jen Psaki could take over, and that's not what happened. The latest ratings for the briefing with Jen Psaki failed to crack even the 1 million viewer mark. They advertised the heck out of this. She probably had a liberal following, and it's getting pummeled. The Sean Hannity show on Fox, which also airs at 9, has 2.3 million viewers, more than double. So in the 25 to 54 demographic, she's only pulling 55,000 viewers. That's 1/4 of what Hannity had. And that's nothing. Neither one of these are compared to any of the numbers that alternate media, YouTube, Instagram, X, the numbers that they're getting. Now, one of the nice things is they don't have to wait, and they're not stuck to a specific time slot. You can watch me whenever you want. But still, alternate media is garnering far higher viewers. Megyn Kelly gets more viewers, in 20 minutes than Psaki gets in her advertised, prearranged on TV time slot. This is absolutely amazing. So the readout, as you know, was already canceled. The weeknight, which airs, she was replaced. The weeknight, which is the new one, which is at 7, prime time, had 707,000 viewers. And only 56,000 of them were in the key demographic. In other words, you're getting a whole bunch of people. You're probably getting a lot of very elderly people who still watch TV, but they're not in the key demographic. These guys are absolutely getting pummeled in the ratings. They switched up their entire lineup, and they still can't garner ratings. Why? Because people don't want to go get lied to. It's one thing when they thought the networks might be telling the truth, and the networks were 100% anti-Trump. people held their nose about the anti-Trump because they thought the truth was being told. Well, now they've realized over the last 4 years, 5 years, that the media, that the propaganda media absolutely 100% lies. They make up stories, they tube stories, they make up facts. They have 100% gaslit the American public on everything from Russia, collusion, to the Hunter Biden laptop, to the Biden cognitive decline, to COVID. All of it was one giant lie. And people are waking up en masse and they are running from the propaganda networks. And it's not just MSDNC. It's also the Clown News Network. Despite Jake Tapper trying to revitalize his credibility, his book sales are a bust. Everybody's been running around saying that this book is a bestseller. There's been a bunch of institutional bulk buys by places like CNN and others. But in the day-to-day, his book sales are a bust, despite changing his story multiple times, triumphing the PR-tested word humility. That's a good one. On this side, Jake Tapper's fake book, Original Sin, only moved 53,000 units in its debut last week, not counting mass buys by CNN and others. Now, the 53,000 is all about context. This is from, who's the author here? It's on Breitbart. But anyway, so my first and last novel didn't sell any 57,000 units. If it had sold 57,000 copies, the cocaine would have already killed me. All right. Anyway, he also wants to be the next Bob Woodward. So his book sales are not going great. And the ratings of his show have fallen off by like 34% because nobody wants, here it is, 25%. Despite extensive promotion, The Lead with Jake Tapper averaged 527,000 total viewers, a 25% decline from the previous year. So this is absolutely amazing. Jake Tapper, despite writing the book, cannot garner the book sales that he wants, and he cannot garner the ratings on his TV show because nobody wants to listen to the guy who is exposing the cover-up that he was a part of. The only thing, nobody watches CNN. CNN is slightly better. It's even worse than MSDNC. MSDNC gets more total viewers than CNN does. But the only bright spot of CNN is not Abby Phillips, because she's a complete train wreck, but it is Scott Jennings and Shermichael and occasionally Kevin O'Leary on the Abby Phillips show. That's the only redeeming value of CNN whatsoever. Now, Fox is doing way better, but Fox at least has the pretense and the air and the veneer of believability when they have other people on the show. For example, The Five still has Tarloff. She's a complete leftist. And it allows two things. She can get her view out there, but it also allows Waters and Gutfeld and others to essentially speak about the left in general while they dismantle Tarloff. So they can basically put her up as the proxy for the left and dismantle it as they go along. But there is at least a little bit of two-sidedness or fair play to Fox News. CNN and MSDNC have none. The Clown Network and MSDNC are completely in the tank for the globalist cabal, completely in the tank for the ultra-progressive left, not even the establishment Dems. They are in the tank for the ultra-progressive left, and that is why no one is watching them anymore. Hey, thanks for rolling up. Really appreciate everybody being here. Please smash that like button for me. Like, comment, and subscribe, and most importantly, share Courageous Media with everybody that you know. Remember, God is good and He is sovereign. It'll all be good in the end. Till I catch you next time.